Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're starting a series. I'm going to be working on this 2005 GMC Envoy. Has several issues going on, so sit back and enjoy the ride. Okay, so it's 2005 Envoy, my wife's car. Has several issues going on, some that are just routine maintenance and others are more serious. It had squeaking brakes, and so I got pads and rotors to do the whole car, and while looking at that, found that one of the boots was torn on the CV axle, so I bought both CV axles. When you go to stop, it makes a grinding noise because the ABS is engaging. Researching that, it sounds like one of the ABS sensors is probably rust jacked, and because they probably won't come out easy, I did get both ABS sensors to replace them. And then, well, on the way home the other night, it got very difficult to turn. So I figured that it was probably one of the power steering lines let go. So I was like, all right, so I fought with it, got it home, and when I popped the hood to see where it was leaking, to see which hose I needed, it was leaking. Let's see if you can see. It was leaking right down there. It was spraying onto the exhaust, and I'm like, okay. So I went in the house, looked it up online to see which hose it might be, and there's no hoses over there. So all the hoses are on the driver's side. This is on the passenger side. So most likely the rack let go. So I have a rack and all the power steering lines. I have both CV axles. I have both ABS sensors. I have the inner and outer tie rods. Since I'm going to be pulling the rack, I might as well do those. I have the ball joints because when it was driving down the road, the steering wheel would be like that and it was straight, and you make a left-hand turn and then it would turn like that and it would drive straight. So I thought maybe the ball joints were bad, but it was most likely the rack going bad the entire time, and I didn't realize it. But I have those as well. And then when I was looking at it for parts, it has a spring over shock, so those were looking iffy. Looked like they were pretty well rusted through, so got those as well. So basically I'm going to be rebuilding the front end on this thing. It is the wife's car. I want to make sure she's safe. So like I said, there's going to be a multi-part series, and here we go. Okay, so I have it on two 6-ton jack stands, and I'm also leaving the jack here as a third point, just to give me as much support as possible. And because I'm going to be working on the control arms and all the front end parts, I have it up here. I have it up here on the frame, off of the lower A-frame. So this is the lower A-frame, and this is the frame of the vehicle. So I have it up there. Like I said, I'm leaving the jack as a third point, as just a safety measure. So back to it. Okay, so here we have the front end. This is the lower control arm. This is the upper control arm. Got a ball joint here and a ball joint in here. Then you have the spring over shock, and like I said, they're looking pretty crusty. This yeah, I don't know if they're actually even working. So I did get new ones there. Here's the knuckle. You got the brakes, the rotor. So we have to take this nut off to be able to take the axle out. So we got new axles, CV joint boot on one side. I think it's actually this side is ripped, so I'm replacing both. Right here is the tie rod. So it attaches to the knuckle here, runs through, and then for those that saw my tie rod replacement on the Ford Explorer Sports Track, this is where the inner tie rod goes into the rack. So the rack is here, and you have your tie rod comes out, goes to your knuckle. So when you turn the steering wheel through hydraulics, it moves the rack back and forth, which then turns your wheels. Here you can see the tear in the boot and the fact that it's throwing all the axle grease everywhere. So that needs to get replaced. So basically rebuilding the entire front end. Here are the steel lines that go to the rack. So this car has three different power steering lines. There's a high pressure coming from the pump going to the rack. Then it has a low pressure coming from the rack to the cooler, which is part of the radiator. And then it has one going from the radiator, the transmission cooler, back to the power steering pump, to the reservoir. So I have all three, just in case. I figured I was in this far, might as well replace it all. You can see a little bit of rusting here. I mean, these brackets themselves are rusted, but they tend to rust out underneath these brackets. So I got it all. Want to do it once. And then you have your ABS sensor right here. So, and then it comes up and then over and then plugs in here. So it plugs in right here. And like I said, one of them or both of them may be rust jacked. So what rust jacking is, if you're not familiar with that term, the rust will form between the two parts, and then as the rust forms, it expands, and then so that will pull the wheel sensor out of position, so that when you step on the brakes, the car thinks that one of the wheels is spinning faster than the other, which is what causes ABS to function. So if you were sliding on ice and you step on the brakes, one wheel will continue spinning faster than the one that's not on the ice, and the car will hit the ABS, which is basically pumping the brakes really fast, faster than you can, to keep the wheels from locking up and help you slow down. So right now the car thinks that one wheel is spinning faster whenever you come to a stoplight. So we'll fix those. Okay, so taking the brakes off, 13 millimeter. So get the caliper off. Try and press those in a little bit, make it a little easier. All right. So there is that. I'll set that off to the side. And not sure if it's the other side that was squeaking, but I mean, these pads here are about half-life, so they should have been fine for a while longer. But I got new ones, so we'll replace it. Can't hurt. Although one of the squeakers did fall off. And the slides seem to be frozen, so that's not good. And so we'll take the caliper bracket off now. And that is an 18 millimeter. Caliper bracket, rotor. This is the ABS sensor. Goes into the hub. So I didn't get new hubs because they were supposedly replaced when I bought the vehicle. So I'm taking the gentleman at his word. And you can definitely see here the tear in the CV axle. So it's throwing its grease everywhere. Sorry, really. That's an 8, 1 7/8, and 1.5, 2 inch. Oh, those are way too big. Okay. Well, that's not good. The sway bar link is totally loose. Have to tighten that down. I forget if I got new ones or not. says no. Yes, it does. Oh my word. Should have broken those loose when I was on the ground. Alright, something you're gonna want to do before you jack it up like I did. So you're gonna want to break that nut loose as well. And on mine, the 36mm socket worked. That's nice and free, so we'll continue on. Okay, so I hammered in a 5mm Allen wrench into this screw, and then using a pair of pliers, grabbed it, was able to break it loose. So thankful for that. And it didn't snap off inside. Now we'll see if this will actually come loose. A lot of times they'll just break off. Oh, it did wiggle. So we'll wiggle it and pull it backwards a little as we wiggle. Doesn't want to come out. Let me set you down here so you're not going to get sick with all the movement. Now, it's not a huge deal if it does break, because I do have new ones, but I also don't want to be having to drill this thing out of the hub. So we'll just wiggle it gently. A little bit of PB blaster, and just take your time. It is not sliding out at all, it's just wiggling back and forth. You want to pull it straight out. You don't want to pull it at an angle, because then it will definitely snap. So I've got a little pry bar. Twist it a little bit so that the housing that the screw went in, the section that the screw went in, is in the gap, and we'll try and gently bump this out. Still not moving, so we'll come down and try and grab the edge of the pliers and see if we can wiggle it that way. We're getting nowhere fast with this. Alright, I'll be back when I get it out, hopefully in one piece. Alright, well that was short-lived. Snapped off, stuck in the hole. So now we're going to have to drill that out and try and get it out without damaging everything else. Okay, well I grabbed it with a pair of needle nose and the center slid out. So it still has the plastic sleeve that this would be in the middle of, in there. So I'll have to figure out how to get that out, but at least the majority of it's out. And now it's just plastic that I should be able to dig out with a screwdriver, and that way I don't have to run a drill down in there and risk hitting the tone ring and then having to replace the hub. So yeah, so that's that was lucky. Okay, with a little digging, the ring came out in two pieces. It does have this little O-ring that seats in there to keep moisture out, and that sits in a groove here, and with the rust it makes it difficult for that O-ring to slide out. So that's what the issue was. Scrape the rust off of this. I'll clean it up a little better before I put it all back together. But yeah, so this one was rust jacked a little bit. The other one may or may not be, but I will replace both of them. Okay, so because I'm replacing so much of the front end, kind of jumping around, loosening everything, because it all needs to come apart. I have the outer tie rod loose. I have the lower ball joint loose. I have the upper ball joint loose. So this knuckle is pretty much ready to go. I have the CV axle loose. Only thing I don't have loose, which I need to get this knuckle out of the way, is this strut or spring over shock or whatever you want to call it. Could be called either. It just has a single post that goes in here, so I need to get this bolt loose to be able to get this out, and then there's 3 bolts at the top of this that need to come out, and that will allow that to fall out. And I did not get sway bar links apparently, so hopefully these will tighten up. If they don't, it's not a huge deal to replace them later. Just kind of disappointing that I didn't think to get them. I did get the ABS finally all the way out. GM has 3 different ways to attach the wires. Why? I don't know. So there's this bracket here that is basically a Christmas tree. There was a bracket back here that was a Christmas tree that broke. This one here has a hook that hooks inside up here. That was interesting to get apart without breaking. This one here is just a normal little latch that holds down. And then this one here that attaches to the bracket that the brake line is hooked to, you have to squeeze this, and then that's a two-piece part that slides off. Yeah, why they didn't use one style, I don't know. Engineers. Okay, so things are coming apart fairly decently. So to get the upper ball joint loose, I had the bolt driven out almost all the way, and then I put a pry bar in that split right there, spread it, and the upper ball joint came out. If you see this groove right here, that's what the bolt rides in. So that just slides up, and the bolt slides through the groove and prevents the upper ball joint from coming down. The tie rod end, got the nut loose, and then hit the knuckle, which I've talked about in other videos, how it will deform the joint ever so slightly briefly, which will allow it to pop out. I have the nut on the bottom ball joint loose, so things are progressing. Because I'm replacing all the ball joints and everything, you really don't need to be gentle. It's a good thing, because I just messed the threads up on that. Alright, so there's the knuckle loose. Take that off, set it aside. Alright, so the bottom is kind of the same thing. It's going to have a slot that this bolt goes through. And so we got this loose. We'll get this knocked out. We have to spread this, and then it should come out. This brake caliper out of the way as best as possible so it doesn't go flying. That does not want to move.